G'day everyone, welcome to another edition of Chris Rankin's Music Crush. I just thought I'd make a video. I've been doing a lot of entries and thread follows and all lately, but I thought I'll just do a video just to show what I've been listening to. The last week or a bit I've had a little bit of time at home, so been going through the archives and putting out some older classics, some newer stuff as well, but some older classics that I haven't listened to for a while, and I thought I'd just show you what I've been up to. First of all, Chris Prophy. This is the shirt that I was talking about, my friend. So Chris, like myself, is a massive creator fan. That's Chris Prophy, Musically Obsessed. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. So this is the creator shirt that I was talking about, and this was from the 2014 tour of Australia that I saw them on. From memory, it was Death Angel was with them. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was Death Angel and Creator on that tour. And as you can see, you got Australia, and also you got their mascot Violent Mind, who is dressed up like Mad Max. So yeah, this is a really cool shirt, and I thought, Chris, you'd appreciate this. So this is the one I was talking about. Anyway, let me get on with what I'm going to show you, because there's a fair bit to get through. I'll try and be reasonably quick, but I love music, so I do tend to get a little bit carried away when I'm talking about it. But anyway, so Aaron Muth Alame and I were having a little bit of a chat about Clutch, and quite a few people have been showing Clutch lately. It is his favourite band. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. So I thought I'd show my favourite Clutch album. This is Blast Tyrant from 2004. I also love Elephant Riders. That's probably my second favourite. And I do love Earth Rocker. Earth Rocker has my favourite Clutch song, DC Sound Attack. I absolutely love that song. I've seen Clutch twice, 2010 and 2014. On the 2010 tour or show, they played, I'm trying to think from this, they played Cypress Grove and they played The Mob Goes Wild, that's right. And then they didn't play any of this on the 2014 tour, but they did play DC Sound Attack, which I was very happy about. I'm pretty sure that was not long after Earth Rocker came out, and a lot of the set list was from Earth Rocker. So there we go, Clutch, Blast Tyrant, what a fantastic band. I can completely understand why this is your favourite band, Aaron, because they are fantastic. From Virginia, as you know, a lot of my I have quite a large metal collection, and a lot of it is death metal. A lot of it is 80s and 90s, a bit of everything, but a lot of early 90s death metal. And this is the band Deceased that falls into that category for sure. They're from Virginia. Now this is a CD or an album. A lot of bands used to do this, where when they re-release the debut, they also include one of their early EPs in there as well. So now this actual album is called Corpses, Souls and Other Strangeness. But basically what it is, it's the debut album Luck of the Corpse, and you've also got the 13 Frightened Souls EP as well, which was released around the same time. 91 and 92 were those albums originally came out. I remember listening to them. I got it. I had it on tape. Yeah, it was one of the last tapes I had before. Yes, all of them got destroyed, but that's for another day. And then I replaced it much later on when I saw this come out in 2003. Fantastic death metal band. They do slow it down a fair bit, so it does sort of creep into that death doom metal at times. But yeah, Deceased, such a good band. All right, this absolutely brilliant band, Attacker. Love this band from New Jersey. Heavy metal, power metal. This is their second album, The Second Coming. Now, from memory, I was trying to think about this, but I'm pretty sure that this album had an alternative cover maybe in certain regions there was an alternative cover that it was released with. Their first album, Battle at Helm's Deep, is another ripper album, very much centred around Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien world and Middle Earth. But this has got the great John Leone. I'm not sure if it's Leone or Leone, but I think it's Leone on vocals, who really has some strong pipes, really gets the high notes. You know, he really is sort of one of the guys that was keeping those power metal vocals alive in the US. You know, when a lot were coming out of England and Europe, he was very much a strong contender of a good power metal vocalist for the US. So they're from New Jersey. Now let me look at the year. Maybe I should. I've got glasses, but I don't wear them when I do the videos. Maybe I should sometimes, because when I'm trying to read the back here, the print. 1988 was this album. Battle at Helm's Deep, I think, was 1 or 2 years earlier than this. Might have been 86. There's the back there. So, Attacker. Fantastic album. Highly, highly recommended if you've never heard of them or never heard them. Highly recommend, especially the first two albums. So good. Next. So this band is probably my favourite power metal band of all time, although there's quite a few that might be a tie for that. Primal Fear is certainly one of my favourite. Halloween is right up there, just because they've got such a big discography, and I like most but not all. A fairly new band called Eternity's End, which features a whole lot of death metal and technical death metal guys, namely people like Christian Moonsner from Necrophagist and Spawn of Possession, you know, who's one of the best technical death metal guitarists of all time. He's on there. I'm pretty sure Hans Grossman is drummer on Eternity's End, but don't quote me. They've released 2 albums, Eternity's End, in the last 5 years. Very, 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 very good albums. Just outstanding, highly professional. But anyway, see, once I get talking about music, I'm hard to stop. But so anyway, this is my favourite, pretty much my favourite power metal band of all time. And they're called Mystic Prophecy. Been around for quite a long time. This is their 5th album. This came out in 2007. Brilliant band, brilliant album. A little bit one of the heavier power metal bands. You know, their riffs sort of get into the aggressive sort of thrash sound, I guess you could say, thrash heavy metal sound. They're a little bit speed metal at times, but there's the gallop about them, and the speed and so forth is certainly into the power metal realms. And the vocalist, yeah, pretty much, I guess you could call it that US power metal sound, even though they're from Germany. This is my favourite album by them, Satanic Curses. They're just so good. I mean, look at that artwork. You see that on the rack, it just says yes. I've been following them for a long time, since the early 2000s. The last few albums have been very, very good, but I must admit, I feel like they're releasing albums a little bit too quickly, one after the other, and sometimes it feels like they're just doing a little bit metal by numbers at times. I still like the albums very much, but I feel like they might need to slow down, and they probably need to only put about 8 or 9 songs on each album, instead of trying to release an album every 2 or 3 years. It's got 12 songs on. I just feel like they might be watering down the quality. But they are, as I say, my favourite power metal, pretty much my favourite power metal band of all time. Mystic Prophecy, Satanic Curses. Right, next. I have to be careful when I pick up this record. It's one of these weird ones that has the opening at the top. I'm not sure why they do that. Even weirder, because now if you see, so there's the opening, and if you want to read it, everything's all printed that way. So if the record's on the turntable, it's okay, but if the record's not, it's tricky, because if you want to read the back, you've got to be careful that the record doesn't fall out the bottom. But anyway, so the band is called Stray. The album is called Hearts of Fire. English hard rock, heavy metal, a little bit progressive rock, blues rock, a little bit of boogie rock, a little bit of funk in there as well. Just sometimes the guitars have that sort of funk pedal sound to it. They started around 1970, I want to say, and they finished up around 1977. Although, having said that, I know one of the members of the band pretty much keeps them going because they have actually supported Iron Maiden. A reunited version of this band, Stray, actually supported Iron Maiden, and I reckon it was around 2003, because Iron Maiden, they actually covered one of their songs. They covered, I'm trying to remember what they covered now. No, I can't remember what they covered. I'm pretty sure Iron Maiden covered one of their songs. No, it's completely gone. But anyway, back to this album. Buying Time. Album starts off with Buying Time. Was it All in Your Mind? Yeah, it might have been All in Your Mind that Iron Maiden covered. And I think it was on the Dance of Death, like deluxe box or something like that. And yes, and they have been support. When they reunited, they were a support act for Iron Maiden, like early 2000s. So they are going in some ways, I guess. But yeah, Buying Time starts off brilliant, just hooky, interesting riff. A little bit like the riff on Led Zeppelin's Trampled Underfoot. Very quite similar to that. Not ripping it off, but it has that sort of sound to it. What else? Now, this is hard for me to read because they're upside down. I Want to Be Free, which has a little bit of like funk, hard rock sound to it. Take a Life is probably their most heaviest sound, and it certainly goes into that sort of heavier chugging riff. You know, if you call Deep Purple and Black Sabbath heavy metal, then a few, sort of about 3 or 4 on the songs on here could definitely be called melodic metal, especially for 1976. So this is 1976. This is on the PYE label, and this is an original press too. So I will show. There we go. PYE label. So we go, Stray. Brilliant. Now, they had 2 vocalists. Originally, Steve Gadd was the first vocalist. He left, and then they had sort of vocalists that would... one would do one song, another would do another song. And Peter Doyle, when he does his songs, he sounds a little bit like a cleaner version of Paul Di'Anno, of early Iron Maiden, or early recorded Iron Maiden. But yeah, so Stray, Hearts of Fire. If you don't know this, I highly recommend it. Extremely good. Hard rock, blues rock, boogie rock, a little bit of heavy metal, a little bit of progressive rock, and even a little bit of sort of funk sound in there as well. I'm just trying to think. The funk sound I can best think, if I've got a handy, I have, is a little bit like this. If you know this album, the funk, this gets a little bit funky at times, and it's got a little bit about it on Stray as well. And these are about the same time. I can't remember what year this is. Oh, this is 1976 as well. So there you go. Very, very similar sound. This one's obviously not anywhere near as heavy as the Stray, but it still has a little bit of that funk going on. So there's a bit of a reference if you know this album a bit better. But it's only a few of the songs on that Stray record that sound a bit like that. Some are even quite mellow on that Stray album. Some are sort of quite mellow and quite sort of even like Canterbury scene sort of sound at times. You know, it sort of strays into that sort of skipping through the fields of flowers and chilling out under a tree, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But anyway, next one. Pathos. Oh, and this is an amazing album. Incredible band that hardly anyone knows about, and it is such a shame. They are progressive metal. The closest band that I can think of but probably a little bit heavier, is Symphony X. Quite similar to Symphony X. No, Nevermore's wrong. I was going to say Nevermore, and that's not quite right. Maybe Sanctuary, the band before that became Nevermore, Sanctuary, I guess, but more progressive. The songs on here are quite a lot longer. A lot of the songs on here are at least sort of 6 minutes. Quite a bit of science fiction about them. I mean, look at the cover there. So good. They're from Italy. They only ever had 2 albums. This is Sunless Skies, 2009. I've played this album so much. There was one before this, and I cannot remember what the name was, but it was a purple and white sort of a cover, but I can't remember the name of it. The songs on here, Crown of Thorns is heavy, good crunching riff. Then you've also got, what else is great on here? Sons of the Sunless Sky, which is sort of like the title track. The words are a little bit different, but it's basically the same. And Poltergeist. I mean, you know when you see a title of a song on an album called Poltergeist, you know it's going to be outstanding, and it is. So I love this album. I don't know how many people know about this band, Pathos, progressive metal from Italy. Clean vocals, pretty much clean vocals the whole time from memory. I don't think there was many that they did that were. No, they're clean, and they actually, I'm trying to remember them. Most of them are pretty. He gets quite high up there as well. So, highly recommend you to check this out, Pathos. Now, do you remember the days? One of my favourite and earliest ways I was getting CDs, especially the very obscure underground CDs, was those second last pages that you used to get in Heavy Metal magazine, and the page would have the big mail order form, and you'd tick the little box, and all you could see was a very little tiny picture of the album artwork. Sometimes you only had the name to go by and a little tiny picture of the album artwork, and you'd put a little tick in the box of all the different albums that you want. You went, in Australia anyway, I went to the post office, you got a money order, you sent off the money order with your form, and hopefully in about sometimes 3-4 months, even longer, you get this sort of package in the mail, and all the CDs and cassettes would be in there. And these were bands that, we all know of now quite well, but this is, back in the sort of 89, 90, 91, even a little bit earlier than that, 87, 88. You may never have heard these bands, so you're putting a CD or a cassette on for the very first time, and all you've had is the artwork to go by, and that was a real blind buy, and that was great fun. And a lot of my earlier stuff that I bought myself, not asking my mum to buy or buying physically in a shop, that was some of the earlier stuff that I ever ordered for and got. Now, cut a long story short, and even though that was a long story, it's how I found this band, Merciless. Now, this album is 1990, and I got this around 1990 because it was one that I ordered on the back of, or the second last page of a magazine. And not only is this one of the earliest Swedish death metal albums ever made, but this is pretty much my first ever European, even not including England, but European death metal album I ever got, and that was in 1990. Well, it would have been about whenever I got the package from ordering it in 1990 anyway. If you don't know this band, they are fantastic. So this album's called The Awakening. This can be quite a hard album to find these days. Really, really hard. This is quite a cherished album that I own. And for me, this is one of the landmark albums of death metal. This is one of those early foundation pillars of European death metal, and I just love the sound so much. A little bit like early Death, Morbid Angel, all the usual suspects. And this is right around that time. This is, not many had come before this. Savage, nasty riffage, a little bit dirty, filthy sort of a sound, Merciless, The Awakening. So this is one of the, not long after sort of Death and Messiah had turned my path heavier. Also, at that stage, you know, Bruce and Adrian had left Iron Maiden, so I was a little bit upset with them. And those bands, you know, Death and Messiah, had really turned my attention to more heavier, more extreme stuff. This was one of the bands that really helped cement that and helped me realise that a lot of the best metal doesn't necessarily come out of England or the US. So Merciless Awakening, I cannot recommend this album enough. If you've never heard it, please listen to it. It's one of the best. This, if you ask me, should be, if there was a museum of death metal, this album should be right near the doorway. Right, I always try to mention an Australian band in any of my videos. Whenever I can, I always try to. And this is a band that some of you may know. They have actually toured to America. They went to the Prog Power Fest in, I think it was in Atlanta, a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The band is Lord. Quite big in Australia, very big. They did tour with Megadeth in Europe when they used to be called Dungeon. Tim was the leader and vocalist of Dungeon. Great heavy metal, power metal band in the 90s in Australia. One of those bands that was sort of the biggest you can possibly get locally without maybe quite fully being well known internationally. They were definitely known, but not well known. And then Dungeon ended, and then he restarted it all and renamed it Lord. Now this is their 2007, their second album. As the first album is called A Personal Journey, and it is titled as Lord, but some of the songs were left over from the Dungeon days as well. So if any of you guys overseas have never heard of Lord, I highly recommend you check them out. This is one of my favourite albums. This is Ascendance. I wanted to say Ascendancy, but I didn't want to get it wrong. Ascendance. They're from sort of Sydney, Wollongong, in New South Wales in Australia, and I highly recommend you check them out. My favourite song by them, I've got on another album, I didn't pull it out at the moment. My favourite song by them is a song called Digital Lies, off their Digital Lies album. They've had a recent album come out called Fallen Idols too, which got a little bit heavier. Sort of heavy metal, power metal, just a fantastic band, Lord. So good. I've seen them many times. In fact, pretty much almost any time Lord come to Perth, I make sure I stop whatever I'm doing and go and see them. Great band. Always good to have a bit of a chat to them as well. Some great guys. Andy Dowling's always a really good chap to have a chat with him between sets or afterwards, yeah. So next... lost my train of thought. Okay, next, this band I'm listening to a lot again lately, Kingdom, and Lost in the City. Some nice fantasy sort of artwork there. Excellent album, brilliant album. 1988, so it's getting a little bit later. For that look, you sort of would maybe think that it would be 1985, 1984, even a bit earlier. I mean, even, you know, there was some artwork that was sort of late 70s that had a bit of a look like that. So this is 1988. This is the only, as far as I know, there may be another one. From memory, this is the only album they ever did. It's hard rock, a little bit metal, sort of melodic metal, from Germany. There's the back. So there's the back cover there. Excellent album, really enjoyable, very melodic, lots of melody. Doesn't really get too heavy, but it's not too soft either. Not really AOR, doesn't really get into that. It still stays in melodic hard rock, but a very good album, 1988. I don't see too many people showing this album, I might be wrong, but yeah, Kingdom. Lost in the City. So I've been listening to quite a bit of that again lately. Hadn't listened to it for a while. Next, Aviary. I think Ron Haggerty's got Aviary. I can't remember. Now this is the debut. Now there is another version of this where it's got a picture of the airport and then the plane's taking off, but the plane's got bird wings instead of normal wings. And I'm pretty sure that's the UK version. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. This is a Canadian. This is a Canadian first pressing. Now this is 1979, self-titled debut. I got this not so long after it came out. I was quite young, quite little. It might have been about 2 or 3 years after. It's on Epic there. And I got this. I think Molly played them on Countdown a couple of times, and I thought they sounded quite a bit like Queen. And they still do a little bit. You know, it's always a bad thing to say they're a poor man's so-and-so, but I think in some ways they are a bit of a poor man's Queen, and that's no detriment to them. They're just maybe not quite as polished as Queen were, but they definitely have that sound about them. Hard rock, but then there's things like piano and some other little interesting parts where, you know, it moves into the territory of some Queen songs. So yeah, Aviary. Excellent album. I really enjoy listening to this. It's quite light. It doesn't really get too heavy. It is quite light. They're from Washington State, from memory. Yeah, so Aviary. Now, next, I've been listening to a fair bit of this again. Argent, In Deep. Of course, Rod Argent from the Zombies went on to form this band. Now, I didn't realise this and I forgot, but I actually could have answered my first question to the Kiss contest, Chris, not long ago. Because, of course, they did that song first that Kiss later covered, God Gave Rock and Roll. So this is 1973. Progressive rock. Gets a little bit hard rock, but progressive rock is pretty much the best way to describe them. This is a Canadian press. Also on Epic. Rather interesting label there. So this is Argent. This is, I think this is this is Gatefold. That's right. Gatefold. The cover's a little bit funny. I've got to be a bit careful when I'm opening it, but you know, it still looks pretty decent enough, and the front cover's alright. There's a little bit of stuff up there, but I'm not so, you know, when it's an original press and it's an older record, it still looks pretty good. The record plays beautifully. But yeah, absolutely great band. I love this album. Just anything 70s prog rock I'm always going to love. There's very few that I won't like, so I'm always have a chance to get this. Now this, I actually picked this actual physical copy up. I've been wanting this for a long time. And I went into a record store that I'd never been into before. It had been open a little while, but I never had a chance to go to. A little bit out of my area, still in Perth, but out of a suburb that's a bit further away. And I was looking through there and I saw this and grabbed it instantly. I've always known this album and band, but I'd never had a physical copy of this. And so, yeah, I picked it up straight away. Absolutely so good to have. So I did have a Kiss song. After all that. Right, next, Testament. A Testament album is never too far away from my rotation. Been listening to Formation of Damnation. Brilliant album. Of course, this is the album where Alex had come back to the band. So heavy. Henchman's Ride, probably one of my favourite Testament songs of all time. And this, I thought I might show you as well. I've talked before about meeting some of the members of Testament. So you can see here you got Chuck Billy, you've got Eric Peterson, Alex Skolnick, and down the bottom, Steve DiGiorgio. Now, I did also meet Gene Hoglan on that day as well, but for some reason, I can't remember why he didn't sign it, but I did meet them all. And I've told the story a few times. I nearly accidentally made a bit of a foot-in-mouth error and asked Gene and Steve what it was like to work with Chuck. And I nearly said it and went, oh, hang on, of course, that's Chuck Billy sitting right there. That might feel a bit uncomfortable if I go, no, I mean the other Chuck that you work with. Of course, Chuck Schuldiner that both Gene and Steve DiGiorgio worked with on Death albums. So yeah, I did meet them and it was great to get their autographs and have a bit of a chat with them. And yeah, so their Testament, Formation of Damnation. Love this album. There's no bad Testament album in my opinion. Not even close. My favourite Testament album is actually The Gathering. I love that really heavy sound, and the song Down for Life is just magnificent. Yeah, of course I love The New Water and Legacy, Practice What You Preach. I love all the first stuff as well. But there we go, Testament, Formation of Damnation. Right, now, this is for you, Chris, and Creator fans. And I teased this in my thumbnail, or I will tease this in my thumbnail. I think this is the most underrated Creator album, Cause for Conflict. I love this album. I absolutely love it. It's a little bit different. There is a little bit of a groove in there, but it's heavy. The songs are some of the catchiest that they've ever done. It's still definitely Creator, so they have embraced a little bit of what was going on at the time. And of course, this is 1995, so there was, groove metal was pretty big at that time. So there is a little bit of that in there. And then, of course, the Outcast album had a fair bit of industrial in there as well with the song like Phobia. I mean, Phobia is one of their best songs ever. Is there someone following you? I mean, that's just so good. So it's got a little bit of that in it, and, it's 1995. The song Prevail, the opening song, is one of my all-time favourite Creator songs, one of the best opening songs ever. And I think this is so underrated. Everyone talks about all the big Creator albums, but I rarely see this one talked about, and I love Cause for Conflict. So good. Now, speaking of underrated Creator albums, I hadn't been listening to this, but I will now, because I also think this is a very underrated Creator album. I know it was a little bit different. I know it's a little bit gothic at times, but the song Shadowland is brilliant. The title track is brilliant, and it's still heavy. Sometimes when people talk about this album, I think they put people off from listening to it because they say that it's just completely different, but it's still Creator. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, it's a little bit gothic in sound. Yes, it's a little bit sort of dark and creepy in sound and perhaps not the all-out thrash. But if you were to forget all that and just listen to this album as it is, in its own self, it's brilliant. It's an absolutely brilliant album. There's great songwriting on here. Everything sounds as awesome as always, like Creator always does. And I think this is a really underrated album. 1999, Endorama. I love this album. As I say, there's no such thing as a bad Creator album, if you ask me. Yeah, so Creator, Endorama. As I say, I'm only missing 3 physicals. Coma of Souls, Violent Revolution, and the latest one, Gods of Violence. But I'll get them eventually. Most of the Creator CDs, they're the only 3 that I haven't actually bought upon their release. Although Endless Pain, it may have been like a year or 2 after Endless Pain came out, I got on cassette, and I think the CD I got a little bit later. I can't remember exactly when, because I'm pretty sure the CD is not on the initial release, even though CDs were out at the time. So what a good album that is, Endless Pain. Oh, I mean, you mix European thrash metal with a little bit of early black metal, and yeah, I can't resist that. Talking about early black metal sounds with thrash, you just can't go past earliest Sepultura. Oh, I love this so much. So this is a combination of Morbid Visions and Bestial Devastation. Now, of course, I always get this mixed up. Morbid Visions came out with Seculo XX as a split, and then Bestial, did I say that? Yeah. No, sorry, this one. Bestial Devastation came out with Seculo XX, and Morbid Visions came out as a split with Cease to Exist. Now, of course, this was released later. As you can see, it's a remasters where they put both of those splits, and I think they were released individually as EPs as well on this CD. I'm pretty sure this has got the, let me see, pretty sure. Yeah, this has got the Morbid Visions cover on the inside, so you can turn it inside out if you want to and have the Morbid Visions as your display and the case, or you can have the Bestial Devastation. Man, I love this. I love early Sepultura. Beneath the Remains, Schizophrenia, and Arise. My favourite, as I've said before, my favourite Sepultura album is Schizophrenia. The reissue edition, Schizophrenia, that has Troops of Doom, the re-recorded Troops of Doom. Early Sepultura, just one of the best thrash bands of all time during this era. Just love it. Nasty and savage, a little bit of sort of blackened to it. You just can't go wrong, can you, with that? I mean, look at that. And also, I wasn't planning on showing this because realistically, I could show this album on every single video because this is never far away from whatever thing I'm using to play CDs. And I'm talking about this album. This is perfect. I think this is one of the most perfect heavy metal albums ever made. 1987, Sabotage, Hall of the Mountain King. Oliva Brothers, just, you know, we can talk about bands where they just, and Sabotage, don't get me wrong, they've got so many great albums. They really do. And I know other people have favourites. This is my particular favourite, but there are certain albums that just seem to come out with everything spot on, all in the right go. And I love this album. I could play this on a deserted island for a whole week and I'd still be looking forward to pressing play on it again. I love it. I mean, look at the songs on here. 24 Hours Ago. Dun, 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 dun. So good. Beyond the Doors of the Dark. Legions. Strange Wings, with that big classic chorus. Hall of the Mountain King. White Witch. Last Dawn. Devastation. The Price You Pay. Legions. Perfection. As I say, I didn't even plan on showing this, but it was just sitting there because I just started listening to this again. Well, it's always sitting there because it's always on rotation. Sabotage, Hall of the Mountain King, Perfection, Heavy Metal Perfection, 1987. It just doesn't get better than this. So I think, you know, they always say it's a ketchup album. Everyone should have a bottle of ketchup or tomato sauce in their cupboard or on their shelf, and I think everyone should have one of these. So good. So anyway, I've rambled on enough. I hope you've seen some things that you've never seen before, or maybe some of them have jogged your memories of something that you haven't heard for a very long time, and now you go and pull it out of the racks, or maybe you'll go and check it out online, and if you like it, go and grab yourself a physical copy of the album. That's really good if you can. Yeah, I just felt like pulling out and showing you the things that I've been listening to out of my archives. I've got some thread ideas coming up that I'm thinking of doing, but I won't talk any about them until I get them all sorted, because they might be a little bit long, but I think they'll be interesting. So anyway, that's what I've been listening to. Metal from my archives. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'll put some links to channels in the description of channels that I've talked about in my video, just so you can check out their channels as well. But thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Catch you soon.